If investing feels like a full-time job that doesn't pay enough, you're doing it all wrong. Most investors lose money, not because of bad stocks, but because they're trying too hard. Hey Nation, Joseph Hogue here, showing you how to make your money work harder than you do through passive investing. The strategy I'm going to show you today beats 90% of the Wall Street professionals out there, helps you sleep soundly through the market chaos, and will still grow your wealth. And the surprise for most investors is you do not have to give up stock picking. I'm going to show you how to combine passive investing for that stress-free strategy while still getting the 10x returns in individual stocks. At its core, passive investing is the simplest way you will ever find to build wealth, and it is surprisingly effective. It means just buying and holding a diversified portfolio of the market, even the entire stock market. Now, I'm going to tweak this strategy later so you get all the upside benefits, but none of the downsides. But in its pure form, passive investing means rather than buying Tesla one month, Nvidia the next, and whatever else you see on Reddit, you just buy the entire stock market through index funds or ETFs. That means you're not trying to outsmart the market, you own the market, and when stocks go up, which they do about 80% of the time, they take you along for the ride. It's the set it and forget it version of investing that works while you sleep. Here's how passive investing works behind the scenes. An index fund owns small pieces of hundreds, sometimes thousands of companies. For example, the SPDR S&P 500 ETF, ticker symbol SPY, owns shares of every company in that stock market index, the 500 largest companies in the United States, like Nvidia, Microsoft, and Apple. When any of these 500 stocks make money, you make money. When one of them dips, your losses are cushioned because you're not all in on one bad stock. That portfolio manager of the index fund automatically adjusts those stocks along with the market. Some companies get dropped, new ones come in, all without you having to lift a finger. Let's be honest though, no strategy is perfect, so I want to lay out the pros and cons of passive investing. Then later, I'm going to show you a hybrid strategy to have your cake and eat it too. And first of those pros is the low fees. The example passive investing portfolio I'm going to show you later will cost less than 0.1% in management fees. That is just $1 for every $1,000 invested to have a professional portfolio manager. You're also not betting all your money on one company in these, running that risk that one company becomes the next Enron. Each stock in these index funds might only be a fraction of a percent of that total investment value. That means you're getting the upside as stocks move higher, but have that ultimate safety when just a few crash. And best of all, passive investing is the sleep at night strategy. You're not watching the charts, not guessing at the next meme stock, just buying a few index ETFs and spending more time doing what's most important. But then there are downsides to passive investing that you either have to be okay with or just find a way around them. This isn't going to be something you talk about at parties. In fact, it makes watching paint dry exciting. You're also not going to be bragging about your returns because you're going to be getting that market return, no more and no less. That's not always a bad thing, but it's not a great feeling when everyone else is talking about their 1,200% return on Nvidia and you're sitting there with 93% on your index fund. And here, one downside that most investors don't realize until it's too late. You're still getting that market risk here. When the market crashes, your portfolio might not fall as much as those hot tech stocks, but you still feel the pain. Now, you out there in the nation know, I'm not going to stop picking stocks, and I'm going to show you how to combine active and passive investing later. Now, that excitement and the challenge of finding that next hot stock is what I live for, but looking at the returns, even I have to admit, every investor needs some passive investing in their portfolio. Understand, active investing is that stock picking, trying to find the stocks that are going to beat the market, and for fund managers, it is big money. But here in the SPIVA report, researching active funds over the last 20 years shows year after year that these stock picking pros rarely do what they claim. This shows the percentage of the large cap stock funds underperforming the broad stock market index, so the S&P 500 each year. How many of those active stock picking funds failed to beat that market? And it is consistent. Every year, about 2 in 3, just under 70% of the active fund managers don't pick stocks good enough to beat that average stock market return. In fact, over a 15-year period, 92% of these funds have failed to beat the market. Just 8 funds out of 100 where the manager has consistently picked better stocks than just in investing passively in the index. And looking at the missed returns here really brings this message home. This study compares the 20-year return on groups of active funds, those where the manager is stock picking to beat that market, versus the passive funds, where the manager is just buying all the stocks in a group and just letting it ride higher. And yeah, if you could have picked the best US active fund out of thousands each year, you would have made 10 times your money, a return of 1,066% over that period. But the averages speak for themselves. The average active fund returned just 232% over the period. That's about a 6% annual return versus a 285% total return on the average passive fund, a 7% annual return. Now, that 1% a year difference might not seem like much, but besides just the additional tens of thousands of dollars in profits, think about the time and the stress it saves you from constantly trying to pick stocks. So we know passive investing works, but what exactly counts as a passive investment? Let's break down the main types. Then I'm going to show you how to get started and an example passive portfolio. Since the idea here is just to passively hold the entire market of stocks, you want to find funds that do exactly that, like the Vanguard S&P 500 ETF, ticker VOO. Like the SPY fund, this one holds shares of the 500 largest companies in the United States with exactly the same percentages they are in that S&P 500 stock market index. Here you're getting tech giants like Nvidia, Microsoft, and Apple, along with smaller exposure to all 500 stocks of those at once. An even broader index fund here would be the Vanguard Total Stock Market ETF, the VTI, which holds all 3,500 stocks in the US. And the top names are going to be the same as that S&P 500 index because this fund buys more of those larger companies, but it also holds 3,000 additional companies, gives you a broader investment in those other sectors of the economy. But then the ultimate in passive investing would be through this Vanguard Total World Stock Index ETF, the ticker VT. This one holds shares of 10,000 stocks from companies around the world. About 2/3 of those stocks are from North American companies, but it also gives you stocks from Europe, emerging markets, and Asia. But now, while the returns to that passive investing strategy are undeniable, doesn't mean you have to go all out with this entire global stock list. Comparing those top passive index funds over more than 15 years, you would have earned a 490% return on the S&P 500 ETF, that VOO, more than double the return on the world stocks in the VT fund. Nation, going passive is one thing, but that doesn't mean you can't pick and choose the group of stocks you want to own. Another type of passive investing is through target date funds. Now, these are ETFs that hold stocks like those other passive funds, but then also hold other investments like bonds for a little more safety. You choose a fund with your target year for retirement or some other goals, and the fund shifts its investments from stocks, which get those higher returns but are riskier, to safer bonds as you get closer to that date. For example, target date funds with more than 20 years left would have nearly all their investment in stocks and would look a lot like that S&P 500 ETF or the VTI stock market index. That would mean higher returns over time, but more risk when the market crashes. A fund closer to its target date, though, say with 10 years to go, would have shifted maybe 15 or 20% of the assets into bonds for that protection against a crash, and a fund near its target date would have 40% or more of its assets in those bonds. And target date funds are even easier to pick. You just find the fund with the year that you want to retire and you start investing. Now, I'm showing examples here from the iShares Target Fund, but all the major brokers like Vanguard and Fidelity offer their own target funds. And getting started passive investing is just as easy as the strategy itself. You pick an investing site, and here you don't need those flashy apps or lots of research because you're not going to be using it anyway. You want a broker that's going to offer no-cost investing, access to hundreds of funds that you want, and maybe even cash back when you invest. Now, I've recommended SoFi or Public for this, but we'll link to all the investing sites I use in the description below. I have accounts on different brokers, some for the research, some for automated investing, and some for tools, but all that gave me free stocks or cash back when I opened that account. For example, you can get up to $1,000 in stock with a new account on SoFi, so make sure you check out that link in the description. Once you've got an account, choose 2 or 3 of those broad stock market ETFs, or maybe one that covers bonds that get that full market exposure. Here you might start with the Vanguard S&P 500 Fund, that VOO, plus the Vanguard Total Bond Market Fund, the BND. From there, it's as easy as buying a little of those funds each month or even each pay period. Some investing sites even allow automatic investing and reinvesting of those dividends to make it totally hands-off. Now, I've showed you the $100 investing rule recently in a video that I'll link to in the description below, and it's perfect for this type of passive investing. In that strategy, you split up every $100 of new investments into 3 buckets: 60% in the core ETFs, $30 in growth stocks and $10 in dividend stocks. And this passive investing idea fits perfectly with that core $60 portion of your portfolio. So investing 60 out of every $100 you invest in these passive index funds. So with this strategy, you get the stress-free returns of passive investing on most of your money, but still get the excitement and the challenge of picking your own stocks and trying to boost your return. But then all you out there in the nation know, to beat your goals, you have to make investing personal, because retire rich isn't really a goal. Your passive investing strategy needs to match what you want to do with the money and when you need it. That means matching your different goals with maybe different passive investing funds and strategies. For example, you might use a target date fund for your retirement money, investing a part of your portfolio for that year that you want to retire. Then for college savings, you might go with index funds or even a target date fund with a shorter timeline. If your goal is just not to worry about your money, you might even look for those dividend-focused funds or the balanced index funds that don't weight so much more in the tech stocks like the S&P 500 index. Now, if you've made it this far, you're at least open to the idea of passive investing, but there are a few myths out there that we need to crush before they get a bug in your brain. The first here is that passive investing is boring and you won't be motivated to keep investing. And okay, I'll admit, just investing in an index fund is about as much fun as listening to hold music before an insurance seminar, but you're going to get some of that excitement watching everyone else panic when the next crash happens, and using that $100 rule is still going to give you a little bit of chance to do some stock picking. Myth number 2 here is that passive investing means you're going to be missing out on the big winners. Here again, not really, because you're going to own all the big winners in your index funds. You might not be all in on the next Nvidia, but then again, you'll have to spend hours a day finding it and getting the losers that come with that stock picking. Another myth here that passive investing returns just aren't worth it. While it's true that you're not going to beat the market with passive investing, remember, you're still likely to beat the returns on active investing funds and book a lot more profit over time. Look, you don't have to totally swear off stock picking. I sure as hell am not. But if you're ready to build real sleep-at-night wealth, start moving a part of your portfolio into a passive investing strategy. It's not just the higher returns. It's about taking back your time, your strategy, and making your money work for you. Get free stock and cash back when you open an account at one of the investing sites I'll link to in the description. Don't forget to join the Let's Talk Money community by tapping that subscribe button and clicking the bell notification.